Here we go. We're live back here on the beat. I'm Curtis Wright, 836 WFNC 640 AM, WAAV 980 AM. Covering more of North Carolina than any other morning talk show. And in studio is Ilario Pantano and former congressman from New York, and that's Joseph DioGuardi. Good morning, sir.
I'm here, though, now. I'm not
You're here. You're not on the phone.
Okay.
You're here. You know, I made a comment in our earlier segment. This is it. This, for me, is the issue now going forward. I think we have done a tremendous job in the conservative libertarian grassroots movement of bringing awareness and bringing about a debate on who are we as a nation. You know, what do we believe? Do we believe in the individual? Do we believe in our founding principles? That debate now is already, that fire has started, if you will. It's swept across America. So the American people, they've come to a certain decision in their gut and their, whatever you want to call it, in their mind. But there's the second part. What's the solution? I believe the solution, and we need to now do the same thing we did before. Educate them and communicate what we believe in as free market principles. As Ronald Reagan would say, this is the solution, and this is what has made America great. So, you know, Congressman, that's what we need to do. We need to say, we've got the solution. We just have to go back, and we have to respect the free market and reinstate it.
Let me tell you what this is all about. It's all about defining government. Now, what Congressman Ryan did by throwing down the gauntlet, by saying this is what we should be looking at in 2012 at the budget. Mind you, we've had no budget in 2011. We had a continuing resolution. This is how dysfunctional our government is. But what he did was, looking forward 10 years, trying to bend this debt curve downward, he's saying to the people, what is government all about? What should it be doing? And would you believe this debate happened back in the 18th century? Here's Thomas Paine. Common sense. Look how basic Thomas Paine got. Yeah. Now, he had a tyrant. He was called George III, King George III. We have a new tyrant. It's called what's going on in Washington today. And he said in those days that government is not society. Society is a patron. It draws people together. It's a product of man's and woman's affections for man's. But he said government is a punisher. It is there to protect people against people. It's there because of our vices. And then he said, getting to the issue of taxes, what makes it worse is we provide the means that government punishes us by giving it more taxes. And that's one of the issues today, taxes. Why is this such a big issue? When you get to taxes, you got to look at three things. Is the tax way we're taxing fair? Is it simple? And is it raising the taxes? Okay? Now, we know the code we have today is very complex. Now, you could want a fair tax, a VAT tax, any kind of tax. But whatever we do, we got to come up with something that is perceived to be fair. Why? We're on a self-assessment system. You don't get a bill every month like your property tax every year. We say to the people, prepare your tax return, and we'll accept it. We might audit it, but we accept it. People are not paying taxes because they don't perceive it to be fair. So we've got to redo that. But God forbid we come up with a system that gives us part of a fair tax and part of an income tax, then you're going to see both rates go up.
Right.
So we got to be very careful.
Folks, if anybody wants to get in on this discussion, please do. We are honored to have all these folks around the table here. I have to tell you, Congressman, my ex-wife was an accountant. And when we came here to North Carolina, she got a part-time job, or a full-time, I guess it was a full-time job. But she had worked in the private sector, and she worked for a government agency. I won't say the town. And she came home one night, and she looks at me and goes, I never did government accounting. It's all opposite of what I did in the private sector.
And how did I find out? I was one of the young partners in 1975 to be assigned to the bailout of New York City. They hired Arthur Anderson, who did the Treasury Department, because they couldn't understand the books. There was no way to figure out how to bail out New York City until you came up with a conventional balance sheet, conventional P&L statement. We had to work with Felix Rohatyn of Lazard Fraz and come up with that. It took a year. And then we decided to do it for the federal government, and I learned. That was my baptism by fire.
Well, what you said previously in a discussion we had here on the beat was, you know, there's things on the books and off the books. Things that really need to be on the books so people really understand the situation we're in.
Exactly, and that's why I wrote the book, because they don't follow generally accepted accounting principles, which is what the Securities and Exchange Commission mandates. If you are a publicly traded company and you don't use that system, you can go to jail.
And the thing is, we have taken the social, political issues, and we have gone and made them, and people can't see my hands, and they now have been so intertwined with is 2 + 2 = 4 that we now sit around, i.e., this bill that everybody wanted to thought was, okay, it's a move forward. The bottom line is the numbers aren't there. You've done nothing but actually make the situation work. What their thought was, no, the bill was a success. We moved forward, and at least we got people talking.
The bill you're talking, the debt ceiling bill.
Yeah, but you still can't pay your light bill, okay? I mean,
they didn't go far enough. There's no question that we have lost predictability in America. Why are businesses hoarding cash right now? Because, and why are they not hiring? They don't know what government's going to do next.
That's right.
If we don't give them some predictability, common sense tells you good, smart businessmen are not going to act. So we need to do something that's not just short-term, like that debt ceiling, but we need a long-term vision.
Let me tell you something. This government went out and encouraged people to put their prudent, sound accounting and financial principles aside because we believed, for example, that everybody should own a house. So they go out and say, okay, government, we're going to go out and we're going to give everybody the opportunity to own a house. We'll put all those prudent, sound principles aside. We'll kind of compromise on those. Then they go back and they go, holy smokes, nobody can pay their mortgages. We need to go out and punish all the mortgage companies. Now, wait a second. And the banks. If I were a bank and it was the second time around, I'd say, I ain't doing that again. I'm not going down that road again,
the
right?
crony capitalism of Fannie and Freddie are something that were the subject of a recent book called Reckless Endangerment. A lot of members of Congress, specifically on the Democrat side, were complicit in installing cronies that ultimately profited.
Well, what's the old saying? Once a novice, twice a fool? I'm not going to do that if I'm a bank.
Let's talk about those cronies. You know, you just mentioned Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Do you know what they are? They're government-sponsored enterprises. Would you believe they have the full faith and credit of the United States of America when they issue bonds and we had to bail them out?
Yeah.
So, but they're off the books. We don't count that until there's a bailout, like we had with the
S&L. And they're up to $200 to $300 billion.
I read something recently that would kill you. Yeah, you want to talk about adding insult to injury? Who was in charge of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac back then? A political appointee, Franklin Raines. Guess what his bailout was when they finally removed him for manipulating the accounting? He tried to level things so bonuses would be magnified. He got over $200 million, and they gave him a slap on the wrist. He had to pay back $50 million. Guess where he is now? He's an economic advisor to Obama in the campaign.
We'll be coming up on a break here, and Congressman DioGuardi, we get a lot of questions about how to practically implement some of these things. And I think your experience in Congress would be instructive to us. I mean, we can rant and rave about flat tax, fair tax, balanced budget amendments. I'd like you to address maybe a balanced budget amendment. And practically, can that happen? Can we have that?
How do you go about doing it?
Yeah,
right?
Can we do that? Do you have the experience to tell us
It's one of
that?
the few things the Founding Fathers missed in our Constitution. You need some structural discipline, and that's one of the things like term limits.
We're honored to have in studio with us live a former congressman from New York, Joseph DioGuardi.
My pleasure.
I'm Curtis Wright on The Beat.